Lauren Spierer loved sports, both playing them and watching them. She was a fast runner who played soccer for a while before discovering lacrosse. She worked hard at lacrosse and was really good at it. So good that she was invited to play on her high school's varsity team when she was just a freshman. Unfortunately, her sports playing career came to a sudden end during her teenage years when she was diagnosed with long QT syndrome, which is a signaling disorder of the heart that can create issues such as chaotic and fast heartbeats, also known as arrhythmias. People who get this when they're young, like Lauren did, have a higher risk of sudden death and can suffer from sudden seizures and fainting. Even though she could not play sports anymore, she still loved watching them. On June 2, 2011, as her sophomore year of college at Indiana University in Bloomington was coming to a close, that's exactly what she was doing. Watching an NBA playoff game with some friends at her apartment and drinking some wine here at what was known at the time as the Smallwood Plaza Apartments. During the game, she texted back and forth with her boyfriend, Jesse Wolf, who was also watching the game, but he was not here. He was at his house several blocks away. Jesse wanted to meet up with Lauren that night, but she told him she had a migraine headache and was not in the mood to go out. He texted back telling her to let him know if she changed her mind. She did end up changing her mind, but she did not let Jesse know about it. Instead, she was seen on video surveillance leaving her apartment that evening with a friend by the name of David Rohn. They walked over to Jay Rosenbaum's apartment, which was inside this building. Jay had a neighbor by the name of Corey Rossman, who was hosting a party in his apartment that evening. So the group walked over and began to do what college students refer to as pre-gaming. It's where you start drinking and partying before heading out on the town for the night. It's a good way to save a few bucks since drinks are considerably more expensive at bars than at liquor stores or grocery stores. According to Uncovered.com, there were around 10 people at Corey's apartment that evening. Some, or perhaps all of them, were drinking heavily, and some of them were also using drugs. Around midnight, David is seen on video surveillance walking back home from Corey's apartment. He is not seen leaving his apartment again until around 11 a.m. the next morning. About an hour and a half later, Lauren leaves Corey's apartment and begins walking to Kilroy's Sports Bar and Grill. She is seen on video surveillance arriving at the bar at 1:46 a.m. Inside the bar at the time, there was a sandy area to give it a beach feel. She took her shoes off to enjoy the sand. Just 41 minutes later, at 2:27 a.m., she is seen leaving the bar with Corey. At that point in time, she no longer had her shoes or her cell phone. She had left them at the bar. She walked barefoot back to her apartment complex, and she and Corey were seen entering the front doors at 2:30 a.m. Somewhere inside the building, a group of 4 guys, including Zach Oates, walked up to them and started arguing with them. The guys noticed how drunk and messed up Lauren was, and they were worried about her. After arguing for a few minutes, Zach punched Corey in the face. Corey would later claim through his attorney Carl Salzman that he got a concussion because of the punch and that he does not remember anything about the next several hours after that. At 2:42 a.m., surveillance video shows Corey and Lauren walking back outside and away from her apartment complex. At 2:48 a.m., surveillance video shows them entering this alley on foot, heading in the direction of Corey's apartment. Over the next 3 minutes, as they walked through the alley, Lauren dropped her purse and keys, which were later found in the alley. At some point, while walking through the alley, surveillance video shows Corey picking up Lauren and carrying her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. It would be the final time Lauren was ever seen on video. She was wearing black leggings and a white top. By that point in time, according to the Journal News, in addition to missing her keys, cell phone, ID, purse, and shoes, one of her eyes was turning black. the start of a black eye. She had hit her head when she fell over while sitting on concrete steps earlier in the evening.
There are witnesses that saw Lauren in the evening out into the early morning of the day she disappeared.
One of those witnesses was a gentleman who lived in that apartment complex right there up behind us. He claims to have been the last person to ever see Lauren. He says she walked here to this intersection and headed down this street right here. At that point, she disappeared into the morning. No one has come forward to say they have ever seen Lauren since, and she's never been seen on any surveillance video either. This is Twisted Crimes.
Jesse texted Lauren's phone later that morning. He got a text back from a Kilroy's employee who said the phone had been left at the bar the previous night, according to the Times-Mail. Although this was later disputed, at 4:27 that afternoon, Jesse Wolf called the police and reported his girlfriend missing. Then, according to his attorney at the time, Joe Lozano, Jesse called Lauren's dad, Robert, to tell him Lauren was missing. Later reports disputed this claim as well and said Lauren's sister, Rebecca, was the one who called her father. Robert was staying at the family home in New York while his wife, Charlene, was in Alabama visiting family. He was in shock, but he knew he had to call his wife. He thought about what he was going to say, how he was going to break this horrible news to his wife. Then he made the phone call. In a letter to the person or people responsible dated September 3rd, 2011, and posted on a Facebook page the family set up called Official Lauren Spierer Updates from Her Family, Charlene wrote, quote, "You don't know what it's like to call your wife knowing you will deliver news which will crush her. I cannot speak for my husband. I cannot imagine the resolve it took for him to make that call. I can only tell you what it was like to receive it. Initially, you feel physically sick. Your heart races and your breathing all but stops. You feel as if you cannot stand. The heat rises and your head pounds. You are speechless. You are incredulous. After the initial shock, the adrenaline takes over. You call the police department, you call the airlines, and you wait. Each passing moment, agony. You desperately want someone to call you, to tell you Lauren is okay. You miss an incoming block call, your heart sinks. You think you've missed the one call that can lead you to the discovery of your daughter. I frantically look up the names and numbers of every hospital in and surrounding Bloomington. I make the calls. No Lauren Spierer, no Jane Doe has been admitted to any emergency room. All of this in the first hours of having heard about Lauren's disappearance. I count the hours, minutes, seconds until my father can drive me to the airport to make the trip to Bloomington, Indiana. Imagine a grandfather driving his daughter to the airport on her way to discover what has happened to his granddaughter. Imagine that. There were few words exchanged. There are no words. End quote. Family members quickly created missing person flyers, and thousands of them were taped up all over Bloomington. Searches began with family members, along with hundreds of volunteers helping the police look for Lauren. Indiana University Dean of Students Harold Goldsmith, who went by Pete, sent an email to all faculty and staff at Indiana University. In the email, he said that campus personnel were searching buildings, grounds, and construction sites all around campus. He also mentioned that grief counselors were available for students. Police started putting together a timeline of Lauren's final hours before disappearing by looking through hundreds of hours of surveillance footage and interviewing the people who had spent time with her that evening. Corey told police that after they traveled through this alley, then they made their way to his apartment, which was called North 5 Townhomes. His roommate Mike Beth was there when they arrived. He quickly hired an attorney named Ron Chapman, who told the Times-Mail that Mike was working on writing 2 papers for school that night at their apartment. Before hiring his attorney, Mike had told the police that he had been sitting in the apartment working on his papers when Corey and Lauren showed up just before 3 that morning. He noticed they were both clearly drunk, so he helped put Corey to bed. While doing so, Corey threw up on the carpeted stairs. Then, Mike said he told Lauren she should sleep on the couch since she did not need to be going anywhere in the shape she was in. Mike said he was not done with his papers yet and Lauren was not cooperating. He claimed she still wanted to drink and party, so he went to get his neighbor, Jay Rosenbaum, to come and get Lauren. Jay took her to his apartment and tried to get her to stay there for the night, but she refused. She told him she wanted to keep drinking, but he declined. He noticed the bruise on her eye, so Jay said he asked her what happened, to which she responded she did not remember. At that point, Lauren asked to see his phone to call David Rome, the man she had initially headed out with earlier that evening, to ask him for a ride. He did not answer. Jay said he then called someone else to try to find a ride for Lauren, but that person also did not answer. No voice messages were left during either call. Those calls were confirmed by phone records, but there is no way of knowing who actually made those calls. Around 4:30 a.m., Jay said he walked outside with her, then stood at the door of the building while he watched her walk down the street and make the right turn onto College Avenue, heading back toward her apartment. According to his own story, Jay allowed a 4'11" girl who weighed around 95 pounds, clearly drunk, perhaps on some sort of drugs, without a phone, keys, or shoes, to walk off alone into the darkness of the early morning hours. We will take a moment here to talk about the drug issue. Investigators and family members of Lauren have always said there is no proof she was on drugs at the time. However, a small amount of cocaine was found in her room when officers searched it. Most of the drug accusations seem to have come from the men who were around her that night, particularly her boyfriend Jesse Wolf, who claims he was actually not around her at all that night. Jesse never took a polygraph with the police investigating the case. His family claims he did take a privately administered polygraph, which they claim he passed. His parents told the Journal News they did not trust the local police. His mom, Nadine Wolf, said, quote, "I don't think they're very adept at anything except giving kids drinking tickets. I don't trust them, period," end quote. In that same interview, she referred to Lauren's parents as, quote, "liars," and went on to say, quote, "If Jesse was guilty of anything, he was guilty of taking care of Lauren, who had some serious drug issues. She would abuse drugs to the point where she would black out. Jesse always threatened to call and tell her parents, and she said, 'If you do, I'll break up with you,' end quote. Apparently, none of the young men who spent the most time with her that night trusted the local police either. In addition to Jesse, Corey Rossman, Mike Beth, and David Rohn all hired attorneys in the early stages of the investigation. The last person who saw her alive, Jay Rosenbaum, hired a high-profile criminal defense lawyer and moved out of his condo by the end of June. At the time, police were calling all 5 of these young men persons of interest in the case. Police said Corey and Mike did voluntarily give DNA samples. Now, why did these young men lawyer up and quit helping with the investigation so quickly? One theory police have investigated is that they were all working together to cover up a crime. One of them could have killed her, whether accidentally or on purpose, and one or more of the others could have helped get rid of her body. Then, whoever took part in getting rid of the body would know they could be charged as well in the case, so they would want to keep quiet to protect themselves. Or Lauren could have died due to her heart condition. She was not supposed to be drinking due to this condition, much less using drugs. So, say she died because of that, then the boys freaked out and hid her body thinking they would get in trouble for providing her with drugs and alcohol. USA Today interviewed Jeff Cohen, who at the time was the director of the Mercy College School of Social and Behavioral Sciences in Dobbs Ferry, New York. He said, quote, "My guess is a lot of those kids are a bit confused and afraid at this point. Often, when teens or young adults close ranks, they do it out of loyalty to someone who might be in trouble if the truth comes out. That part that says, 'I have to protect my friend,' kind of kicks in. It's a sense of loyalty." He said if the group was part of a cover-up, then social retaliation could also be a factor. He said, quote, "Social acceptance is such an important part of a teenager's life. An adult would be able to withstand social retaliation. They don't have the adult way of thinking through these issues. It's short-sighted," end quote. According to Uncovered.com, at 4:35 a.m., a homeless man heard a scream near where Lauren was allegedly last seen. This tip may never have been verified, and the man was apparently Franklin Road Dog Crawford, who died just a few days later. By June 7th, the case was getting attention nationally. Ryan Seacrest sent out a tweet at 2:50 that afternoon saying, "Let's help find missing 20-year-old Lauren Spierer, last seen at Indiana U." He added a link to a photo of Lauren and tagged the post, "Find Lauren." The Times-Mail reported that sometime around 8:30 that evening, police showed up at Smallwood Plaza holding a search warrant. They were denied access to parts of the building by Smallwood workers. So they used battering rams to knock down 2 doors in the lobby area. While here, they took computer hard drives and CDs from a mailroom and security room inside the building. Smallwood management later released a statement saying, "No employee was available with a key at the time police showed up, but they were cooperating fully with the investigation." On June 8th, Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay offered a reward, tweeting, offering $10,000 reward for serious info that solves Lauren's missing persons. Contact Bloomington Police. By Thursday, the family was offering a $100,000 reward, and local attorney Ken Nunn was offering an additional $25,000 reward. On Sunday, June 12th, the case gained more attention nationally when Kim Kardashian tweeted out, "Spread the word, please help find Lauren," along with a link to a picture and the hashtag #FindLauren. Texas EquiSearch arrived on Monday, June 13th, and began searching, bringing along around 167 trained searchers. On Wednesday, June 15th, police released 2 pictures of a white Chevrolet 4-door truck. They said it may be important to the case. The truck was seen on video surveillance circling around the area where Lauren disappeared sometime after 4 a.m. on June 3rd. After that, police began stopping white 4-door trucks throughout the state of Indiana. Within a few days, police found the vehicle and the driver. They brought him in for intense questioning. He said he was working as a contractor and was picking up a worker at that time. Police determined there was a glitch in the video surveillance that made it appear as though the truck had driven through the area twice, when actually it had only driven through once. In August, police spent 9 days searching a landfill where the trash from this area was disposed of. Bloomington Police, Indiana University Police, along with the FBI, took part in the search. In the early morning hours of April 24, 2015, 22-year-old Hannah Wilson was drinking with friends, celebrating the fact that she had aced her final exam the previous day. They showed up here at Kilroy's bar, where her friends decided she was too drunk to go in. So they got her a cab, gave the cab driver $20, even though the fare was only $6, and sent her home. She made it home, but then she disappeared. Her body was found the next day. She had put up a fight, and a cell phone found near her body was later determined to belong to the killer, a man by the name of Daniel Messel, who was 49 years old at the time and was later found guilty of her murder. Brown County, Indiana prosecutor Ted Adams handled the case against Daniel. Prosecutor Adams would later release a statement saying he felt Daniel was also responsible for the disappearance of Lauren. His statement read in part, quote, "My opinion or theory should be taken as nothing but an opinion. I am not an investigator, nor do I possess any formal training. I am not a part of the Lauren Spierer investigation. This matter is out of my jurisdiction. I do not have access to any of the information possessed by the professionals at the Bloomington Police Department and, hence, I cannot comment whatsoever as to the evidence or lack thereof of any person of interest or suspect. I am a simple prosecuting attorney who readily admits to possessing tunnel vision when commenting on the disappearance of Lauren Spierer. My admitted tunnel vision focuses on one individual who I convicted of brutally murdering Hannah Wilson. The individual is Daniel Messel, a convicted murderer who demonstrated, in my opinion, a pattern, a signature known as a modus operandi. As a person who lived with the task of convicting Daniel Messel for the murder of Hannah N. Wilson, which consumed my thoughts for 16 straight months, I developed an opinion based upon what I had learned of Daniel Messel's modus operandi. It still remains only one man's opinion. The Indiana State Police and the Brown County Prosecutor's Office was tasked with piecing together a timeline for Daniel Messel on the night of April 23, 2015, and the morning of April 24, 2015. At the same time, our team diligently attempted to determine what Daniel Messel's motive was. What possessed a man to select a beautiful and promising young co-ed and slay her? Our investigating revealed a chilling modus operandi. We discovered 5 women who were systematically harassed during the summer and fall of 2012. These women believed the individual harassing them was none other than Daniel Messel. I attempted to submit the testimony of the young woman who was attacked in November of 2012, but the judge ruled this evidence inadmissible. Our witness was unable to identify Daniel Messel as the man who attacked her. She was unable to identify him in 2012 when making a police report to the Bloomington Police Department. This prevented the Bloomington Police Department from moving the case forward. What these women could identify was consistent with either Daniel Messel or a vehicle consistent with Daniel Messel. Currently, there are other charges pending against Daniel Messel from an allegation stemming from an attack in September of 2012 in the same area as the other women. The Bloomington Police Department was able to assist the Indiana State Police in identifying Daniel Messel's cell phone number when it was found under Hannah Wilson's body. Messel's number was on file because he had called dispatch when he was hung up on a stump at 4 a.m. and in the same area as the harassment and stalking cases in 2012. Hannah Wilson disappeared from her home on 8th and Grant Street in the early hours of April 24, 2015. These contacts, to me, demonstrated a modus operandi of harassment and attacks from as far west as Walnut Street to as far east as Dunn Street, and from as far north as 10th Street to as far south as Kirkwood Street. I labeled this area as Messel's zone of danger. Lauren Spierer was last seen heading south towards 10th Street, the northern edge of this danger zone. She was intoxicated and alone. My opinion is simple. Her disappearance and vulnerability is consistent with the zone of danger of Daniel Messel, a convicted murderer, a man who was found to have plucked a young student from that same zone of danger and intentionally killing her." End quote. In June of 2015, a prison inmate by the name of David Heightened wrote multiple letters to Daniel's attorney, the county clerk, and a judge. In the notes he said he actually helped Daniel dispose of Lauren's body. A user on Reddit by the name of Bones of Autumn was able to get a copy of these letters. In the letters, David wrote, quote, "It is her, Lauren, and I put her remains there in 2012 to protect a friend who accidentally struck her with vehicle that morning. She was between Bloomington and Ellettsville off Highway 46 until I relocated her remains during a camping trip to the Brown County area Memorial Weekend 2012. I took photo of 2 IDs found on her. One of the IDs said Rebecca. Rebecca is her older, nearly twin sister. He claimed in the letter that he still had the 2 IDs in safekeeping. He also claimed the body was in the Lake Lemon area, which is near where the body of Hannah Wilson was later found. David has since been released, and according to his LinkedIn page, he works for his brother Eric's lawn care service called Eric's Custom Lawn Care. We reached out to David through LinkedIn and asked him if he still had those IDs in safekeeping. He did not respond to our request. We do not know if Daniel Messel is a suspect in Lauren's case at this time. On January 28, 2013, the FBI, along with officers from the Bloomington Police Department, searched this property here in Martinsville, Indiana. A man by the name of Justin Wagers was living here with his mom and stepdad at the time. Police told the media that the search was in regard to the Lauren Spierer case. Police used cadaver dogs and removed Justin's truck with a camper on top from the property. The Daily Journal reported Justin Wagers was a serial flasher with a criminal history going all the way back to at least 2001. He spent several years in prison for various charges and was listed on the offender list for 2 charges in 2005, as well as for a charge in 2016. In June 2015, there were multiple complaints to various police departments about a man sitting on people's porches, knocking on women's doors, and pulling up to women on the street. In each of those cases, when the woman looked in his direction, he would drop his pants. One report was from a woman who had her children with her when this happened. Another report was from a 14-year-old girl. 2 months later, in August, a woman was putting air in her bicycle tires at a local gas station. When she finished and left, he followed her. When she got into her neighborhood, he stepped out of his truck and pulled down his pants. Also that month, he walked into a Goodwill store and dropped his pants in front of a woman and a child inside the store. He went to prison, but shortly after being released in 2018, he was up to his old, disgusting behavior again. This time, he stood naked at the window of his home, and when a woman from a nearby house looked in his direction, he started to cover himself up, but he quickly changed his mind and continued to stand there, staring at her. On top of those charges, Justin also had some issues with violence. According to the Indy Star, he admitted to making threats to an ex-girlfriend. Police said he made 44 calls to her over a 2-day period, and she told police she feared for her life. In a different case, he admitted to beating up a woman after an argument. Court documents show he grabbed her neck, arms, face, and throat when she would not allow him to see her cell phone. On the same day of the search at this house, police and FBI agents also searched this house in Trafalgar, Indiana. This was the home of Justin's father. According to 13 WTHR News, here they also used cadaver dogs, and the dogs did hit in several areas, according to Doug Wagers, who is Justin's father. One of the areas they hit at was around a camper. Police began digging in that area. Doug said the previous owner of the camper had died inside, so he assumed that is why the dogs hit there. Doug said he was confident his son had nothing to do with Lauren's disappearance, telling 13 News, quote, "Justin's a good kid. I don't think he did all the things they said he done. I'm not saying he's perfect, but in my eyes, he's a good kid. He's gotten caught up over the years," end quote. Justin's grandfather, Frank Wagers, also told 13 News that he did not think his grandson had anything to do with Lauren's disappearance. He said, quote, "I don't think that's in him. I don't think that he had anything to do with nothing like that. I don't. I just don't believe he did. It just doesn't fit him. He was just too good of a boy. He's not a murderer. I can't see that," end quote. It's a little strange that Justin's father and grandfather each refer to him along the lines of being a good kid. Just based on his criminal history alone, that is certainly not a term we would use to describe him. Police have never released what they found in either of the searches, and no charges have ever been filed against Justin in relation to Lauren's disappearance. Sadly, to this day, no charges have ever been filed against anyone in relation to Lauren's disappearance. She is presumed dead.
We've now reached the portion in the video where we share our own thoughts and opinions on this case, starting with Heather.
I can't even begin to imagine the heartbreak and the devastation her parents must feel, sending their kid off to college and thinking that she's just bettering her life and things are just going to be so much better when she graduates. And then she disappears. That's very sad.
It's also very sad that they have no closure in this situation. They have no idea if she's alive somewhere. We've seen some cases where people have been found holding on to women in their house for years, even for more than a decade, and later they'll be found alive. Parents have to be holding out hope that maybe that's the case here. Perhaps she was killed that night, though, and hidden somewhere where she has never been found. And then the other question is, if that is the case, who did this to her? No one knows, and it wouldn't be surprising if any number of people were to be found out one day to be the murderer in this situation, or even if more than one person, or even an accidental death. That wouldn't be surprising either, that these kids decided to hide. It's hard to figure out exactly what happened here. And then we're not sure about the statements by witnesses. Did Jay really see her walking away sometime after 4 o'clock that morning? If so, she couldn't have made it too far before she would have hit some sort of camera and would have had to been grabbed on the road, if that's a true story that Jay is telling there. It's just hard. All these boys lawyered up very quickly, which was a smart move on their part, but it sure makes it more difficult to figure out what happened in this situation. Please share your comments below. We can discuss this case more down in the comment section. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.